Hello and welcome to another Gwent video in channel Duello. In this video, I'll be talking about the top cards to craft in Gwent game. I'm obviously targeting new players with this content, however, experienced players are more than welcome to stick around to hear my selections. If you are familiar with digital collectible card games, there is usually a crafting system to help players obtain the cards they need instead of hoping to get them from boosters or they're called kegs in Gwent. However, crafting materials are usually scarce, especially if you didn't spend considerable amount of time playing the game yet. So you need to be careful in crafting choices. You don't want to waste your resources on mediocre cards. This video will hopefully help you out with those decisions. Before listing the top cards, I would like to address that this list is subject to change. Gwent game is frequently updated. We see buffs and nerfs to the cards on a monthly basis. And some leader abilities change over time as well. And expansion sets are released periodically, and we are seeing some new card releases, in some small packages. That's why there is a March 2021 date in the title of this video, and this list features post 8.3 balance update. In fact, this is the second video on the series, on this YouTube series. You can find the previous one and the link below. So I'm planning to continuously revise the list and reshoot similar videos after each new expansion arrives. So these videos will hopefully be like one in every 3 months or so. Okay, let's begin. I'm going to be selecting 5 legendary, 3 epic, and 3 rare cards from each of the factions, and plus the neutral cards. And I mainly chose the cards that are being used more frequently than others. And also, I won't be talking about commons because they are easy to obtain, and I won't recommend anyone to spend scraps on them. So if you craft them, you won't regret, because that card is pretty much guaranteed to be included in a competitive deck. And by the way, this video could also help you with selecting the cards that come out of the kegs. You know, in Gwent, they offer you 3 cards and you pick one of them. So one of the things that I like about this game is we get to choose a rare or above card from that pool. So especially when I was a beginner level player in this game, I was struggling with my choices because I wasn't sure if I was picking the best cards. And often I remember going to the internet while that selection was still on my screen, and was kind of deciding which, let's say, legendary or epic card to pick. So also make sure to check our website, teamduello.com. We will be uploading the text version of this content. It's not ready yet, but it will be in a week probably. So the purpose is that you don't need to go through this entire video to find what you're looking for. Okay, let's start the video with monsters. The previous video that I shot was before the Way of the Witcher set released. So a lot of cards were introduced in that time, and also lots of modifications happened. But the cards that I'm offering for monsters pretty much are staying the same. Why is that? Because especially if you're a beginner level player, you want to create a deck that are based on point slam. And right now the meta for monsters is either Araka Swarm or Cautelus, and both decks are kind of specific decks. I mean, you need some specific cards to play in those let's say lists. And you don't need some of the, let's say, standard powerful monsters cards. That's why my selections are a bit different than those. And I'm starting with Oberon. Oberon King is the evolving card for monsters. And Oberon is really powerful, just like the other evolving cards. So if you didn't purchase the faction pack or something like that, yeah, I will be talking about those too. So you always have the option to purchase those evolving cards. If you didn't, you should definitely craft Oberon. Any deck that is using Thrive will benefit from using Oberon, so you won't regret crafting this guy. Ygern is probably one of the most popular Monsters cards. You see this card in almost every Point Slam deck, and since Ozrael is part of the starter set, and every player, starts with the game having Ozrael in their collection, that's why you need to craft Ygern as well, to play with Ozrael. So you should definitely do that if you haven't done already. And Hound is one of the better scenarios in this game. Obviously, you need to play Death Wish cards to be compatible with Hound. However, Hound is really a powerful scenario, so you just need maybe a couple of consumes or something like that. You can jam this card to any monsters deck if you want to, as a beginner level player. So crafting Hound is not a bad choice. So that's why it's one of the 5 legendary I am offering here. And you need some kind of a tutor in a monsters deck, especially if you're playing Devotion and you cannot use Oneiromancy. Naglfar is a pretty, good choice. You look at 2 random gold cards from your deck and you play one of them. At the time you play the card, and you're guaranteed to draw another gold in the following turn. It's really good for 9 provisions. It's being used in V decks. That's also popular. I didn't talk about that while I was talking about 2 selections, but actually there are 3 selections. So other than V, it is totally usable. I definitely recommend Naglfar as my 4th legendary choice, and my final legendary suggestion here is Cave Troll. Cave Troll is a pretty standard defender. However, if you're playing vampires or any other, combo-based deck, or if you want to protect your scenario, Cave Troll is a pretty good choice. So I definitely recommend it. And Cave Troll is right now being offered as part of Yennefer's Journey. If you purchase it already, and you reach a certain level in Journey, you're gonna own Cave Troll. But if you didn't, you should definitely craft it. You won't regret. And let's move to epic cards for monsters. I'm gonna first suggest Goliath. Goliath again is a staple card for monsters. It is a big point slam card for only 8 provisions. Yeah, there is downside to him. But that downside, with a little bit strategy, in some cases could turn to an advantage. But other than that, it's a pretty good finisher at the end of the round. So again, this is a craft that you won't regret. Hyperion Phantom is one of the patience cards. You need to wait, and then the card gets boosted or do something good. And you also have the option of dealing 3 damage. And these cards exist for every faction. And Hyperion Phantom is actually one of the better ones because it immediately boosts itself. So he's a bit hard to get removed. And having Veil on it protects him from Nilfgaard. And other than that, this is a pretty good card for only 7 provisions. That is my second choice for epic cards. And the Beast. The Beast, again, is one of the most popular monster cards in this game. If the opponent cannot find a solution, Beast gets out of hand, especially if you're playing high point cards, high power cards like Ygern. The Beast will benefit from standing next to them and will get bigger and bigger for every turn. And again, Beast provides a lot of points for only 7 provisions. Beginner level monster players should definitely craft this Beast. Now let's move to bronze rare cards. I'm not going to be talking about commons, so let me repeat that. And Draga Larva is probably one of the best 5 provision cards in this game. I don't need to talk any further about it. If you're missing any of the larvas, yeah, just use your scrap on them. They're really good, and you should definitely use 2 of them. And Bruxa, again a Thrive unit for only 4 provisions. Plus she's a vampire and gives deploy, and especially in the first rounds, she's really good. And again, if you're missing Bruxa, use your scraps. Wildhound Bruiser Well, Wild Hunt Bruiser is not part of the core set, so I mean these bronzes are easier to get, you know, since there are not many of them, and if you keep opening kegs, you're gonna receive them eventually. However, I mean if you are low on coins and you don't want to get these, you know, kegs, again you could think about crafting Wild Hunt Bruiser because it's a pretty good move card, and plus this guy is part of Wild Hunt synergy. And other than that, if you're playing Frost theme deck, this guy is gonna get even more value. So I think this is a pretty good card for only 5 provision. He's very flexible. Worst case scenario, you just move a card. Let's move to Nilfgaard. Well, right now, at the time I'm shooting this video, Nilfgaard probably has the best legendary cards in the game. And I really had a difficult time to select 6 cards, 5 cards from them. So that's why I decided to include 6 cards, but there are even more cards to suggest. However, I mean, I'm assuming that you have limited amount of scraps. So if you have limited amount of scraps, what cards do you need to first craft? My first selection is Coup de Grace. This is an echo card, and it received a buff, and after the buff we see this card in almost every Nilfgaard deck. And it is a tactic, so it goes really well with tactic synergy. Other than that, damage an enemy unit by 3. It was 2 before, and that made a huge impact. For only 9 provisions, you can play it twice, and if you play this on spy unit, you automatically you know, trigger it and you spawn the exact copy of it. So especially with Masquerade Ball, you can only use 2 aristocrats and play Coup de Grace, and you can trigger your Masquerade Ball easily, maybe in a single turn. So lots of advantages with Coup de Grace. So this is definitely a must craft and one of the best cards in the game, in my opinion. The second card I will recommend for Nilfgaard is Bradens. Bradens first received a nerf. It was really popular when he was first released. After that, the nerf was reversed, well, actually adjusted. Right now he's a pretty solid choice, and you can play Bradens in any round, and he has a simulate tag on him, so he's an engine. I mean, you can deploy and create a bronze disloyal unit from your starting deck, and this used to be out of nowhere, so you didn't need to include any bronze cards, but now, you know, you can include 2 of the spies that you need, and depending on the board, you can prefer to use either Duchess or Emissary. This is a pretty good card, and we see him again in almost any Nilfgaard deck. And Invocation is the best Nilfgaard spell in this game. Unfortunately, this is not a tactic, this is a spell, but again, this is very flexible. You can use it in any round. You can use it for having the last say and remove a high target from the board, or you can use it, let's say, in first or second round and put a unit on the top of your deck, and you can play it on the next turn as your own unit. So there are many advantages to it, especially the spell really goes well with Joachim. The next recommendation is Usurper. Again, this is an echo card. If you purchase the pack, you already have it, so you don't need to craft it. But if you didn't, again, you won't regret. And this puts a lot of points on the board. It really goes well with spy interaction, status interaction, and the final form is also an aristocrat. I mean, there are many advantages to playing this card. And I mean, the only bad thing is you can't play it in the first round because it's really weak. But other than that, I mean, for second and third round, this is a powerhouse. And again, this is a staple in most of the Nilfgaard decks. And I have to suggest Masquerade Ball. This is the highest provision card in the game, I guess. And they're right about it, because I mean, you poison your opponent's units. You put agents on the board, and this is really an unstoppable card. I mean, one of the reasons that people are playing Heatwave, just to remove the best scenario in the game. So I have to recommend this, and if you don't have it, please craft it. Yeah, you're gonna need it. And this is my bonus suggestion, Ramon. Ramon is really good, especially if you have a couple of soldiers in your deck. It's gonna spawn and play a base copy of it. And Nilfgaard is really weak, especially in the first round. As a first round play, you can play this. It will get a lot of value. And for defending bleed, it's pretty good as well. For final round, he could be risky. You want to have plenty of golds in your hand, and if you have Ramon, you need to have a bronze soldier copy in your hand. So it is kind of a tricky situation. So you need to be careful while playing him. But I mean, for 10 provision, again, this gives you a lot of value. So you should craft him, especially if you plan to use soldiers in your deck. Let's move to epic cards. This epic cards is probably better than most of the legendary cards in the game. And Roderick of Dantoin, or Roderick shortly, I probably mispronounced the last name. Anyway, so you look at 2 random gold cards from your deck, then play one of them. This is a partially tutor card. He is an aristocrat, triggers Masquerade Ball, and you manipulate your deck, especially after coup de grace was introduced. Roderick became even better because you can play him twice. So this is a must, obviously. Again, you see him in probably every Nilfgaard deck. Joachim is again a great card. I mean, you may not see Joachim in some certain decks like Mill deck or that kind of stuff, but I mean, this is a must include in every Masquerade Ball deck. And you deploy and play the top non-disloyal unit from your deck and boost it by 8. So unless you're drawing a 4P card, 4 power cards, this is going to get you a lot of value. And with coup de grace, again, you can play Joachim twice. But especially if you hit a gold unit, you're going to get even more value. So obviously this is an RNG card, but again, you can manipulate your deck, and if you have a few units left, you're pretty much guaranteed to hit the target that you're looking for. Especially if you're playing invocation, you invocate opponent's units, and then you are guaranteed to draw it with Joachim. My final recommendation for epic cards is Van Moorlehem's Cupbearer. Cupbearer again is a great card, very flexible card. You can either play him on deep melee or ranged. If you play melee, poisons the unit. Ranged purifies the unit, and purify is really valuable. You shouldn't underestimate it. Plus, he has assimilate. So again, a great value card. Let's move to bronze cards. The first bronze card that I'm going to recommend is Viper Witcher Mentor. This is a pretty bad card design. However, this is a overpowered card, so I have to recommend this because with 6 provision bronze card, you can get value up to 15. So this is insane. I mean, you can get value from 4 to 15. I mean, a card like that shouldn't exist in Gwent. However, we have to accept it, and this should have been actually a gold card, not bronze card. And you can play this card 2, 3, or even 4 times with using special cards. I mean, since he's a bronze card, that is the problem. And again, if you craft this, this is a really powerful card. You won't regret. My second bronze rare recommendation is Van Moorlehem Hunter. Hunter is similar to Van Moorlehem's Cupbearer, very flexible card. I mean, depending on what you need, you can put him on melee or range roll. And he's an aristocrat, so that's also a great bonus. And let's move to my final bronze recommendation, Fangs of the Empire. Deploy, give an enemy unit poison. It's pretty obvious for what he does, but obviously you're gonna need a second poison unit. But we see him a lot in especially Masquerade Ball decks. So you should definitely craft it if you're missing. However, this is not a rare card, so I kind of made a mistake here. I just saw the color here, so oops. You should find something else. So this is easier to achieve, easier to obtain. Let's move to Northern Realms. Okay, for Northern Realms, what are my legendary recommendations? My first selection is Amphibious Assault. Assault is the best Northern Realms cards. You play a Northern Realms unit from your deck with a provision cost of 9 or less, and this includes gold cards, and that's big. It's not just bronze cards. And you also boost it by 1 for each provision below the limit. So if you're pulling for a bronze card for 4p or something like that, Amphibious Assault will give you a lot of value. Next, Prince Ansei. Prince Ansei became even more popular with Shield Ball leader ability. However, without Shield Ball, we see him in Witcher Swarm decks. So, I mean, he's really powerful. With Inspired, you can duel an enemy unit, and if you put it on melee row, you can still duel it. And if you have a boost target, you can boost Prince Ansei and remove an important threat. So again, a must-craft card. My third legendary selection is Prince Viraxis, the evolving card for Northern Realms. You're gonna see that, I mean, in almost every faction, maybe excluding Syndicate. Yeah, Syndicate is also in the list. The evolving cards are pretty good, so you should definitely craft them. If you have the money to spend, and if you're a beginner level player, you could think about actually purchasing their faction packs. Anyway, so for Viraxis, Viraxis is a bit different from the other evolving cards because you need to have them in specific decks, especially with Shield Wall decks. You can replay the order ability of a specific unit like Prince Ansei or other dual cards. And also, I mean, any unit with order is really powerful, like Baron. So I think this is also a must, but it's again a bit more specific compared to other evolving cards like Jacques or Usurper. They are used more commonly. My fourth selection is Bloody Baron. Even though we don't see him around, I mean, lately, but I mean, it's really up to change depending on the meta. Bloody Baron again could appear in a lot of decks. This is a really great reset card, so any beginner level player should definitely craft Baron. It's gonna really help you with especially in lower levels of ladder. My final legendary choice is Queen Adalia. Queen Adalia doesn't seem like a really strong card at first glance, but she provides a lot of value, especially depending on the bronze unit you're copying. What does she do? Spawn and play a place copy of Bronze Northern Realms unit from your hand and give it shield, and that shield could be important. And this is really a good tempo card. You can defend the bleed or go for bleed. There are a lot of uses. So Adalia is really good. I would recommend her. Let's move to epic cards. Margarita received a buff lately, and the provision and power is pretty good right now. 6 provision, 6 power, and you can lock an enemy unit. So Northern Realms usually play devotion. They cannot use neutral cards because of that. That's why I mean having an R lock unit is really nice. And 6 power and 6 provision is pretty good. That's why I would definitely recommend crafting her. My other two choices are really not that crucial. Egmont is really good. Again, a patience card. What does he do? He boosts the unit next to it, and then has the damage 3 option too. And he has Veil, obviously. So it's pretty good for its value. But this is not, let's say, staple in any kind of deck. But again, a great card, especially for beginner level players. You will really like him. My final choice is kind of, I mean, I was really struggling to find one. So the bronze pool is great for Northern Realms, I guess. Voimir is really great if you're playing similar units like with the soldiers that are spawned from the ships or other commandos maybe. I mean, those kinds of decks Voimir really help. Let's move to bronze. This bronze card is better than the epic cards that I just talked about. Karak Frigate is really good. So if the opponent cannot find a solution for Frigate, it's gonna keep spawning volunteers on the same row as long as there is a soldier next to it. Again, one of the best bronze cards in the game. So 6 provision is totally normal. Griffin Witcher is a newer card. This card didn't exist in the previous video. So Griffin Witcher is really good. It's an engine. You can damage an enemy unit by 1 every turn. Cooldown 1. And this one is interesting. If you have 3 or less cards in your hand, it's gonna lock itself and damage an enemy unit by 3. So it's gonna bring you 3 more damage. But after that, it's gonna stop pinging. But if you give Veil to Griffin Witcher, you're gonna hit 3 and then damage a unit by 1. So it's gonna lock, and then because of the Veil, it's not gonna get locked. So it is kind of a bad design in my opinion, and this makes Griffin Witcher really powerful, especially if you're playing him with Crystal Skull on blue coin. And maybe this card will be fixed. I don't know. Time will tell. But they didn't yet. Final bronze recommendation is Radovit's Royal Guards. As you see, the bronzes for Northern Realms are pretty good, actually. Rare bronzes. And this card has been used in Northern Realms 6 for a while, and it's still being used because, it gives a lot of value, especially with the boost thingy. And Scoia'tael is our next faction. My number 1 choice for Scoia'tael, legendary choice, is Gazaras of Leda. This is a great card and great design in my opinion. Really powerful card, but it's not overpowered because you need to set up for Gazaras. You need to put a lot of units on your range row. When you play him on melee row, it's going to go to range row and boost everyone, and then move to melee row and hit everyone on opponent's melee row. So if your opponent isn't careful and put a lot of units on melee row, Gazaras will give you a lot of points and probably win you the game. He is that powerful. As long as you pay attention to the adrenaline number there. So you can't play him earlier. Forest Protector is really good, especially if you're playing a deck that uses a lot of nature cards, a spell heavy deck, special heavy deck. Forest Protector really goes well with Nature's Rebuke, a great tempo card, especially if you're killing something. So the evolving card for Scoia'tael is here as well, Aethne. And Aethne is really good due to the spawn tokens. They have symbiosis, and if you keep playing nature spells, you will see a lot of Treants on your side of the board. If you are playing Devotion, the third form is pretty good because Aethne will have symbiosis as well. And it's hard to remove 3 targets at one time, so that's another plus. Call of the Forest. So this is the tutor cards for Scoia'tael. You play Scoia'tael unit from your deck and boost it by 1. And especially with FAO, this card is really great. But they also, let's say, thin out your deck. It's really helping with that cause. And if you're missing a crucial target like Gazaras, or for Dwarves deck, Brewer, Call of the Nature will help you with that. My 5th choice is Vernasiel. Vernasiel looks like a card that is designed for only Elves deck, but he is helping out with forming a long row. That's why we could see him in non-Elves deck as well. And also you can play him in unitless decks and with traps or something like that. So since he has many uses, I decided to include him in this list. And this is a bonus selection, FAV. Since I talk about Call of the Nature, FAV can also tutor for Call of the Nature, Shaping Nature, or Isengrim's Council. Those are really valuable gold nature cards. That's why if you are willing to go to that route, spell heavy deck, you need to craft FOB as well along with Call of the Forest. You don't have to craft Isengrim's Council right away, especially if you're running low on scraps, but those cards are really important, those two cards. Let's move to bronze epic cards. Danka is, in my opinion, the best patience card. Why? Because boosting a random Scoia'tael unit in your hand by 1 is really good, and even if you move her, she'll keep boosting units, and having 3 damage is also a great bonus, especially if you're running leader ability like Precision Strike. I mean, she can complete the missing damage and kill an important target with her. I have to again recommend Herald Gord. Herald Gord is going to be only used in spell heavy decks, but we are seeing a lot of special or spell heavy decks at the ladder. There isn't a single deck, so that's why Herald needs to be in this list. And if you manage to play, let's say 6 or 7 units, Herald will come into play at least with 10 power, but we usually see him around 14 or 15. So a lot of value and a great finisher. My third recommendation, I selected Triumph. Again, great value card, especially if you manage to put Dryad on the board. You're gonna get an immediate value with Zeal. But other than that, if your opponent cannot answer Boar, he will keep producing points for you. But if you don't want to, craft this, you have options. Especially the luck cards for Scoia'tael are really good. You can craft Ciaran or Moran. Both are really good cards. You can go with that as the third epic card. What about rare cards? Cat Witcher is really an overpowered bronze card similar to Griffin Witcher. This is a really good engine. He will keep moving from melee to range row and keep hitting opponent's units. And with Adrenaline at 3, it's going to damage it by 2 instead of 1. So another card that needs to be answered. With 5 provision, I mean, this is a lot of value card. Hamadryad is only going to be used, strictly going to be used on nature decks with symbiosis decks. So that's why, I mean, this is not a, let's say, must craft deck. If you're planning to play Nature's Gift decks, you should definitely craft Hamadryad. And if you have only one, it's not gonna work. So you need 2 of her. And Tempering, another nature card. Well, I look at the deck editor and I couldn't find a lot of actually rare bronze cards. They are really good common bronze cards. Nature's Rebuke is common, and there are also pretty good common cards, common card selections. Since I'm selecting rares, Tempering was the best that I could find for my third choice. It's pretty good, but it's not an, let's say, impressive card or by any means. Again, if you're missing and if you have scraps to use, you could craft Tempering. Let's move to Skellige. For Skellige, similar to Northern Realms, I'm going to recommend Blood Eagle, the Echo card. Well, actually, Amphibious Assault is more widely used because to use Blood Eagle, you need to play warriors. Other than the warrior decks, Blood Eagle is totally useless. But again, similar to Amphibious Assault, you're looking for a warrior card from your deck. And if you manage to get Death Blow or Bloodthirst 3, you can play any warrior from your deck. So I think it's more powerful than Amphibious Assault, but Amphibious Assault, you don't have any restrictions. I mean, you can play any card between provision 4 and 9, but this Blood Eagle is kind of tricky, but it's easy to, achieve these conditions. My second choice is the evolving card for Skellige, probably the best evolving card in the game, I guess. because he will resurrect the warrior card from your deck. Again, put 2 units on the board, especially if that unit is an engine. It's even better. And final form of Herald is much superior than the second form, because that random pings could really help you with Bloodthirst and killing some crucial units. Herald the Cripple is a great card, no doubt. I mean, the Cripple is the final form, obviously. Herald and Crate is a must craft. The next card is kinda new. It is one of the 12 leader cards, Iced Tursak. And for Iced, we have 2 restrictions though. You need to play Warriors and you need to play Blaze of Glory leader ability. Other than that, you may not get the value that you're looking for. But if you manage to meet the conditions, it's really crazy. This is probably gonna get nerfed. So if you're watching this video, I mean, a couple of weeks from the time that I shot, it is going to be different, because it obviously needs a nerf. Why? I mean, because if you can, manage to get Bloodthirst 2, you draw a card and then discard a card, and that discarded card will be summoned, will be put into play instead of graveyard. That's huge. Other than that, if you use your Blaze of Glory leader ability and you hit a unit with its power, and then that unit will go to your board instead of going to graveyard. So I mean, you can get like 30 points of value while using Iced. So actually, decks that are running Iced is totally based on this interaction. I mean, this is a must craft, obviously, but I don't know if they nerf this card to the ground. Maybe you could regret crafting it. So I gotta warn you before using your scraps. The next card, Svalbard Totem. As you see, Skellige has really great legendaries. Svalbard Totem doesn't look too impressive when you look at it, but Skellige is in dire need of proactive cards, and Svalbard Totem really fits that purpose. You just hit the totem, put the totem on the board, and those Svalbard Fanatics are trick cards. The opponent cannot interact with them, because if they hit them, they will turn into Bear Abominations. So you can put the totem, and you can wait to use the order ability, depending on what opponent is playing, obviously. So this is pretty good for a Temper Vision slot. And Morkvark Heart of Terror has received a nerf, and they removed Warrior Target. But at the same time, they buffed Pirate cards. So if you're using Kraken Crate, Morkvark becomes really, really even better. But I kind of hesitated putting him in the list. But he's really a powerful card, especially if you're a beginner level player. You should definitely craft him and put him in your deck, regardless of playing Warriors or Pirates or whatever. He's a game changer and great finisher and great response to boosted units. This is a bonus selection because Skellige has a lot of units, and I mean, if you want a warrior, let's say craft, Tryggvi could be better right now compared to Morkvark. Plus he's a pirate too, so that's a bonus. And Tryggvi gives an enemy unit Rupture, and Rupture will hit the unit with the base power. So with Veteran, you can play him for 7 power, and then if you let's say use it on a unit like Goliath, you can get tremendous value from Tryggvi. As long as that unit's, I mean, unless that unit is purified or the opponent somehow manages to put a shield on it, Tryggvi gives you a lot of value. Let's move to bronze epic cards. Scoia'tael is an epic that deserves legendary status. Probably the best veteran card in the game. You need to play Devotion, obviously, to use Scoia'tael. And with Devotion on the 3rd form, you hit a unit by 5, and this guy is 5. So again, a great value and tempo card. Raiding Fleet is a tutor card. I mean, you look for a ship in your... You don't look, actually. You play a random bronze ship, obviously, but if you have just one type of ships, this is not a random card, obviously. And you can play this in warrior decks. You can play this in maybe pirate decks. So a lot of potential, so that's why I decided to include this in the list. My third option is Jenga Fret. This received a buff similar to Margarita. Again, this is a great luck target. You can't immediately luck like Margarita, you need Bloodthirst 1, but it's easy to do in Skellige. And the power is 7 though, 1 more than Margarita. Let's move to rare cards. Uncrate Raiders is a rare card, and with veteran ability you can play him for 6 power. You can damage a unit by 2. With Bloodthirst 3 he gains seal. He is a warrior, he is a pirate. So a lot of tools under his belt. One of the best 5 provision cards in my opinion. And Bear Witcher is one of the newer cards that came out with Way of the Witcher. He is really popular thanks to the location card. I mean, with Adrenaline 4 you play this, it damages itself by 3 and damages a unit, so it gives you 8 points. If you have the location next to him, you can heal 2 points of him. And if you somehow play this, not play it, but summon this card, the base power is 8, so that could really help with some interactions. So plenty of potential for Bear Witcher, so this is a great card for only 5 provisions. It probably deserves maybe 6 provisions. Uncrate Greatsword is a classic. After his rework, and that rework was really great, they didn't kill the card, and this time it's really different. Again, I mean, similar to the past, this guy receives a boost when you hit a unit, but there is a maximum point, so it doesn't get up to ridiculous amounts like 20-30, so it stays on 10. Other than that, there are some interaction again with the base power thing, similar to Bear Witcher, and he's a warrior. Final bronze card that I'm going to recommend, rare bronze card, is War of Clans. War of Clans is really good in, again, warrior decks, obviously, and you divide the damage. I mean, you hit an enemy unit by 2, and then you call a bronze warrior unit, 4p bronze warrior unit from your graveyard, and there are really good targets for that. Brock for Hunter, Uncrate Warrior, or Marauder. Those are really 3 great targets. And again, this is a really good value card, especially if you're killing a crucial enemy target. Now, Syndicate, the final faction. Syndicate is really a difficult choice for new players because of the coin mechanics. It's the most complex faction to play with. But I mean, if you really like that complexity, you should definitely try out Syndicate. But I mean, Syndicate isn't part of the starter set, and you're playing the game, beginning the game with 0 Syndicate cards. Actually, maybe CDPR needs to do something about that. That's why Syndicate is almost always the final choice for factions. Anyway, I mean, if you're going to select the Syndicate route and, you know, keep collecting cards or keep opening kegs from Syndicate faction, the cards that you need to craft are from legendaries. First, Jacques, again, evolving card. He is pretty good. Even his first form could be useful compared to other evolving cards, but his second form is really great because he becomes a spender. The third form is okay, but I mean, lots of Syndicate decks prefer to play non-devotion, and Jacques is great in the second form, so we see him in every decks, every Syndicate decks probably. I mean, he is being used in Passiflora decks, crime decks, swarm decks, so he's really become a staple card for Syndicate. Philippa again is being used in more than one deck. Philippa is a steal card, so you steal your opponent's, let's say, an important card, and suddenly a great, you know, point swing in your favor. So, and probably the most, let's say, critical card, or the card that opponents needs to play around. So she's really great for time provisions, but you need to be careful with your coins, otherwise she becomes trash. Flying Redanian is a thinning card. You don't play him actually from your hand, but it gets from your deck, out of your deck, if you plan to if you manage to collect 9 coins. And collecting 9 coins isn't that difficult in Syndicate. So if you play carefully and do that, this Redanian comes into play every round. And that 3 point could make a big difference. Nilfgaardian Justice is a multicolor card, and so far, Justice has been used mostly in Scoia'tael decks, but after the nerf, Justice actually became better for Syndicate. So for Syndicate, this is not a nerf, but a buff, because when you play a bronze dwarf or crown splitter, so when it says crown splitter, they don't have to be dwarves. There are some gnomes and other creatures that have crown splitter stacks, so it is possible to play him as long as you have dwarf or crown splitter on your side of the board. And when you meet that condition, it spawns a cleaver's muscle and plus a bronze dwarf or crown splitter from your deck, especially the halfling. And finally, Passiflora. Passiflora is again one of the best scenarios in the game, and right now they are not that popular thanks to the buffed cards in crime decks. However, that is obviously object to change. Things could change and Passiflora could become popular once again. So if you have scraps, definitely craft Passiflora. It's a super powerful card. We can probably see it next month, because it didn't get a nerf or something like that. Sigurruven received a buff. Its provision has been reduced by 1. He is being used in crime decks, and we're seeing him in Passiflora decks as well. So that's a pretty good card. You can play him in tribute decks maybe. So he has become really an important card, and it's also good to see an important character from the Witcher universe becoming a staple card in my opinion. So definitely craft him if you don't have him already. Let's move to epic cards. Sol is really similar to Beast, but he's even more threatening than Beast. If you meet the Horde conditions, he gets out of hand unless the player has an answer to him. And if you manage to play it with Horde 9, he becomes immediately 7 powered, and there are only a few cards that can deal with that. The opponent either has to lock it or they use toll removal to get rid of him, and he's only 7 provisions. And this is a repeat selection. I recommended Herald in Scoia'tael, but you need to craft Herald in Syndicate if you're planning to play Crimes or Congregation or any special card heavy deck. So this is a must. Finally, Lieutenant Van Hurst is pretty good. He could be used in Passiflora decks, not Passiflora decks, but I would say hidden cache decks, because that Horde 4 becomes much less and it's easier to meet that condition, and he will keep spawning Firestorm Zealots. And other than that, he is a spender, so he can transform those Zealots to Footmen. So he needs to be answered, obviously, and he's pretty good for 8 provisions in my opinion. What about the rare bronzes? Street Urchins is one of them. Pretty good card. Gives you coin and also a spender and also blind eye. Halfling Safecracker is really popular, obviously, thanks to crime decks. He has Intimidate and boosts up by 1 for each crime in your hand when deployed. So if you have at least 3 crimes, Halfling gets a lot of value already, because you're going to play those crimes, and with Intimidate, he's going to get even bigger. So this little guy could easily become a double-digit unit on the board. My final bronze recommendation is Salamandra Mage. We don't see him that often, but he has pretty good potential. Does a lot of things. I saw him in several decks, but not an auto-include card. But again, great value card. If you pay the tribute for you, it damages 3 adjacent units by 2. That's pretty good with only 5 power, 5 provisions. And whenever you pay a tribute ability, gain 1 coin. So you need to play a tribute deck. But other than tribute decks, you could see him in certain decks. Okay, so that concludes all the factions. And finally, I'm going to be talking about neutral cards. So, I mean, you could be missing some crucial neutral cards. So, and you have limited scraps. What cards should you use those scraps on for neutrals? My obvious choice is Oneiromancy for legendaries. If you're playing non-devotion, Oneiromancy is pretty an auto-include card. It plays any card from your deck, and with Echo you can use this card twice. So unless you're drawing this card on third turn, you're gonna get a lot of value from this card. Karate Heatwave, again, standard non-devotion inclusion. Almost, I mean, all non-devotion card decks use it. And not only it removes a unit, it also removes an artifact from the game. My third choice is Madoc. Madoc is designed to be used with bombs, but you don't need to use a full bomb deck. With only 4 or 5 bombs, you can definitely include Madoc in your deck, because, I mean, with the first bomb you play, Madoc is removed from your deck. So similar to Flying Redeemer, this is also a thinning card. But especially if Madoc is summoned to the role that you want, he can give you even more value. But still a pretty good card, in my opinion, for control decks. And Magic Lamp is an odd choice, probably, but you need to have some stratagems other than tactical advantage. I mean, you can go with tactical advantage to a certain point, but if you plan to get better and get more wins in the ladder, you gotta have Magic Lamp. So Magic Lamp should be your first priority in stratagems. You need to think about other choices like Crystal Skull after you craft Magic Lamp. And Tris Telekinesis is a pretty good card. With Deploy, you can create and play a bronze special card from either player's starting deck. With Swarm decks, she's really useful. I mean, she was being used to draw Lacerate. And again, decks that are using Assimilate decks, she's also really useful. So we see her in different factions in different decks. So I think that deserves a must craft tag on this card. So you should definitely craft her sooner or later. Let's move to epic cards. I always thought Portal was a legendary card because this card really does a lot of things, and it's 12 provisions, so it's really unusual for an epic card to have 12 provisions. Well, it looks like it is an epic card, so that's why it has to be here, the best epic card in the game. No, not in the game, but for neutrals. So again, a great, let's say, first turn play. You immediately put pressure on your opponent, even though the second summon is being done after 3 turns. It's really good. Curse of Corruption is a tech card. Destroy the highest units. Could be really useful against some certain matchups. And finally, Maxi Van Dekkar. I was really making fun of this card not a long time ago, but she received a buff. The provision has been reduced from 6 to 5, but that one provision, reduction really, made difference. People were suddenly kind of interested in this card and kept using her. What she does is, if you have some bricks that you don't want to draw, you play this card and you move them at the end of your deck. But if the order of your deck is really good, you can always keep the same order and maybe take a screenshot or take notes on what cards you'll draw. But if you draw this card on the final round, she is totally useless. Still 5 provisions, 6 power, not bad. So I had to include her here after I make fun of her and ridicule her. Well, she is here. What about rare cards? Squirrel, again a great tech card. Banishes a card from your opponent's card. That could be one of the Echo cards, obviously, but other than that, Flying Redanians, Madoc, or Ygern, those could be really good targets. And if you don't have a Purify card in your deck, Like if you're playing NR, NR doesn't have a direct Purify card like this, you could use Peller. And finally, well, there aren't many good rare neutral cards. Pact is okay card, that's why I decided to include this as my last selection. Boost the unit by 6 and give it Dooms. That could be helpful for 4 provision, 6 power. Well, that's it, I guess. So thank you for watching this long video, and I hope you liked it. My target was beginner level players, so the next time you open a keg, so keep this information in mind and select the best card out of the 3. And good luck with the Gwent game, and hope you get better in the game. And also, if you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button. And if you like what I'm doing in this channel, please subscribe to my channel. That would be really appreciated. Thank you and bye-bye.